In this episode of OG55, we are talking about Monstropolis coming to Disney's Hollywood Studios. We're doing the series now where we're breaking down all the announcements at the D23 Expo and kind of giving each announcement their own video. This is the Monstropolis one. This is the spicy one. Up next on OG50. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of OG55. We are breaking down Monstropolis. Where is this thing gonna go? This is a very, very controversial topic amongst the community. But before we dive in, George the Italiano, welcome back, sir.
Glad to be back. And yeah, as you had mentioned before, this is, I think, one of the spicier topics that was mentioned at the parks presentation. Not in that time. Everyone was elated the fact that we're finally getting a Monsters Inc. land in one of the Disney parks, the first ever. But yeah, basically, what it's the controversial topic of what came after the announcement of where this land is actually going to be placed in Hollywood Studios is the kicker.
That's the kicker. That's the kicker. The devil is in the details. Italiano, if you could let everybody home know where they can find you on social media.
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you can find me right here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There it is. 55 gang. Let's go. All right, here we go. So this is the news right here. It says here, this is courtesy of WDWNT. Breaking the first ever Monsters Inc. land coming to Disney's Hollywood Studios. It says here, Disney's Hollywood Studios will get the world's first ever Monsters Inc. land that Disney announced at the D23 Ultimate Fan event. Now, here is some concept art. This is actually old art. I believe this is from 2020, correct, if I'm not mistaken. Now, this is kind of the scene of the crime, so to speak, right? This is why people are worried about it taking over Muppets. Because if you look over here, the water tower, and I think even this building right here, if I'm not mistaken, is giving fans concerns.
Because this is basically the angle as which, when you walk into the Muppet Courtyard where it stands today, this is basically the angle frame that you see. And where you see the Monsters Inc. building is basically where the Muppet Vision 3D building stands today.
Interesting. And we're going to break it down. We're going to get into the maps. We're going to get real nerdy. We're going to really dive in to see if that's even a possibility, if it can even fit in here. We'll see. But there's also some other art here. This one, which is, now, you're more familiar with Hollywood Studios. Any Muppet iconography or anything that you can see here that kind of points to it being in the Muppets area in this particular shot?
Now, this one doesn't for me. Now, this seems like a different... And now, even though it's kind of shown in a different angle, but based on the layout of what it looks like, this kind of gave me the vibe of Animation Courtyard, because you kind of get like a kind of a square framed kind of feel to it, where you see both sides, where you see those building facades. That's where the Disney Junior Dance Party building would be, if this is based off of the Animation Courtyard. And then where the building of Monsters Inc. stands in this concept art is where the Star Wars launch bay, or formerly known as the Disney Animation building. But I could also see something else in this piece of concept art too, of how it is angled. And could it potentially be where Rock and Roller Coaster is, along with the Lightning McQueen Racing Academy? Because I believe that's where the expansion pad is, somewhere beyond back in that point.
And that's where, and we're going to dive into the maps, but that's kind of my leading speculation theory is that area actually. But so this is one piece of art, and then this is the older art. This is from 2020. Right. So this is, hey, look, fans were worried. I mean, this very much is the Muppet area. So fans are concerned. And Yeah, so that's pretty much that. So let's dive into the attraction. This is the first ever suspended coaster, and this, I'm telling you, I've been in this community. I say this all the time. I've been in this community really, literally since like news groups on America Online. Okay, this thing has been a concept for Disney parks. I think they wanted to put this thing in DCA at one point. I mean, this has been a concept for like 20 years. Okay. So they're finally doing it, which is awesome. I think it's awesome. What do you think, George? It's kind of interesting too, how it's, because I was always wondering, like, how are they going to do a door coaster? Are you going to have seats like tacked onto the doors? It's kind of cool. They're kind of taking the route of like the laugh containers. And kind of using that as your device to kind of go through these hallway scenes. I mean, these doorway scenes. What do you think about that? You like this idea?
I actually do, because I always wondered that myself, because I remember, and I've said it many times on the channel, but for everyone who hasn't seen all our shows, that I have done a Dine with an Imagineer back in 2010, 2011. And I spoke to him about it when this was in the rumor mill on Jim Hill's podcast. Right. And I had asked him, is this true? You know, is there supposed to be, at the time, it was just a Monsters, Inc. attraction. They mentioned nothing of a Monsters, Inc. land. But he said, yeah, there was, and at that time too, it was supposed to replace Rock and Roller Coaster. And he said, we have the concept art all for it. You know, it was already kind of greenlit, ready to go, but a lot of the funding wasn't there at the time. And also Disney was looking for a sponsor that they could not lock in a deal for. But yeah, like when the Imagineer Gary Landrum told me that, I was kind of like scratching my head, like thinking that's interesting. You would replace Rock and Roller Coaster, but it would be based off of Monsters Inc. And I'm thinking, because with the ride system, when you're in the super stretch limo, you're down really low and you're on top of the track. And I'm thinking, yeah, how does that incorporate with Monsters Inc. and how do you make it look like the door sequence? And it never really dawned on me to put two and two together to do a suspended roller coaster, which I think is genius.
Yeah, and if they did, we'll dive into the maps in a second. But if they did close Rock and Roller Coaster in that general area for Monstropolis, that building might be saved. The actual building might be saved, but they're gonna gut that thing. I mean, it'll be all new track. I mean, they'll gut it. You know, they'll keep the support structures, the walls, and everything, but that's about it probably. And everything on the inside will be new. But
my only concern with that, I actually think, well, in my opinion, I actually think that everything would go if that would be the case, and here's why. When you look at,
you mean when you say everything, you mean the building too?
Even the building, and here's why. Now, I could be wrong, but when you look at the Rock and Roller Coaster building of how it is today, it's very long and kind of like in a like a horizontal kind of shape building. It's kind of long but low.
Like this is it right here, correct?
Let me see.
Monsters Inc.
Yes.
I mean, roller coaster. Now, correct. Is this building back here also?
That I believe that's where actually the coaster resides, because with the front part is the queue area. So the front part of the building right here, that's the queue. That long stretch, that's the launch.
Gotcha. And then it takes you into
there. So when you kind of look at the aesthetics of like how the building is, and then you kind of look at the Monsters Inc. factory itself, it's very tall. And for me, I think Disney's going to want, and it even looks like that, not even just in the concept art, but in the films as well. Right. And Disney's going to want to make it as realistic as possible to tie it into how it looks in the movie. So honestly, the way that the shape of the factory is as to how this building is, I think honestly they would demo the whole entire thing. They would demo the whole Rock and Roller Coaster building. They would demo the
Lightning
McQueen Racing Academy, which is right north from it. And they would have that whole area to build upward, because I feel anyways, because especially with a suspended roller coaster, when you have the vehicles underneath the track, you have to have an extra amount of layer between where the track is to the ground.
Right. You're gonna get, yeah.
So you would need more height. And I think that building, and I could be wrong, but I'm looking at of how Cosmic Rewind is at Epcot, of how it's high. It's a big blue box. And I think that's the kind of building that they would need. But obviously the outside facade would look like the Monsters Inc. factory.
Yeah. If you look at this space, it's a sizable, and bear with me, this touch mouse drives me nuts. But there's Tower of Terror, but this is a sizable area. Like if you were to take down all these structures, and including Lightning McQueen, you could build a new show building here for the coaster at the end of the property, right? Mm-hmm. And this could be the lead up when you walk in. It can be the lead up in your walk through Monstropolis right down here as you get to the main show building right here. It makes a lot of sense. Now, a lot of people are concerned about Muppets. Now, look, this is a pretty big area. I think my money is right here, especially since Aerosmith is just announced their retirement, and there has been rumors for years that Disney has been looking at this attraction to replace it, to retheme it. I think that the good money is on the Monstropolis going here, but to be fair, some people are thinking it might go into here. And this is where the controversy comes in. And we're going to talk to our friend Starship about this this weekend. But this is Muppet Vision 3D, and this is the Muppet Courtyard. Now, what's all this? Like Mama Melrose Restaurante?
Mama Melrose Restaurant. Now, they never mentioned if Muppets does go. I'm assuming Mama Melrose, the building would stay, the restaurant would stay, but it would just maybe be themed to Monsters Inc.
But
maybe they would turn it into like a Harryhausen. But here's the but. When you look at the overall structure of that, it's very narrow.
Right. No, this is not. I don't know if this is enough room for what they're showing us in the concept.
Look how close Galaxy's Edge is.
Right. I just don't see it. This building, this Monsters building, is going to be a monstrosity. I mean, this thing is going to be huge. I'm telling you that right now. It's going to be massive. I mean, if you look at the art, I mean, obviously, it's art. I mean, but it's big compared to like a lot of these other structures in the area. It's a huge building, and you're going to fit that in this little Muppets courtyard. I'm not seeing it, fam. I'm sorry. I'm just not. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, the more that I'm looking at it, as I said, it looks very narrow. Now, of course, if you were to knock out all the buildings, I still don't think because
it's not
where
that big of a space.
Where the Muppet location is, it's gridlocked.
Well, look at this. It would be this whole little area right here, this little triangular area right here. So let's just say best case scenario, you knock down this building, you knock down all these structures here. You think you could really fit that big ass Monstropolis building in here still? I don't think you can. I think that it would be a real
and here's the other
fit.
And here's the other thing too we have to take in consideration. They only announced the e-ticket attraction. Chances are, if they're doing a land, there's always a minimum of 2 rides. There's always the e-ticket, and they always have maybe like a C or a D ticket.
Well, they are doing a land.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. So being that they are doing a land, they never mentioned it. They just mentioned the e-ticket, but every time Disney does do a land, they always do 2 attractions. Right. So if we're just talking about it's a tight squeeze just to get the e-ticket in there,
yeah,
where is a C or D ticket going to go?
Right, exactly. What are they going to do? They're going to get rid of Star Tours? I mean, I doubt it. No, I don't see this thing. And look, I love the Muppets, and I'm happy to say it. I really don't see it going here. And again, we could be wrong. We're speculating. That's the fun of it, But no, I just don't see it, bro. I really don't.
No, I actually don't either. Can you go back up to where Rockin' is?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let me go ahead and get over there. Okay, here we go.
Okay, so even with Rockin', even look behind where the coaster building is. So you have the
right here.
Yeah, that. So you have like the backstage area, which can easily be moved. It can easily be moved. So that's even extra land. But I believe that the expansion pad that everyone was talking about where there was the possibility that the villains might go in is north there, right where OG's cursor is, where you see all that greenery and those trees.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that that whole plot of land would all be monsters, obviously, because that's a big chunk of land, but
Right.
they still have wiggle room to play with up in that area.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So you already have a bigger space right here. And then you also have, like, to your point, George, even a little more room if you want to spread out into this area, assuming this is usable land, you know, which I assume it is, because if it was rumored to be villains. So you have a lot of space here. I'm telling you, this is where it's going. This is where Monsters is going.
Yeah.
It has to be. This has to be the spot. It doesn't make sense. And then, okay, so now the other location that people are speculating on is Animation Courtyard.
Yeah.
And bear with me. I'm a Californian, so I'm having a little trouble here finding shit. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so this is the Animation Courtyard.
And they're keeping the Little Mermaid building, which is right
here, right down here.
Yeah, right there. They're keeping the Little Mermaid building because the show's going in, so they can't touch that.
So it would just be this Disney Junior thing and Launch Bay.
Yeah. See, that's still, again, it's still gridlocked.
I don't see it. I mean, it's possible,
now,
I guess.
How far off from where the Launch Bay is to where Rockin' is? So there's
the Launch Bay, right, and then Rockin' is up here. It's not that far.
It's not that far. And then I don't know, like, because that's also, I think that's part of like backstage area. Again, now I don't know if they would combine the two, but I don't think that they would really need to, because I feel like that the Rockin' area has more than enough wiggle room, plus with a little bit more of that expansion pad behind it, and the backstage area that they can move to a different location.
Yeah, it's looking like it's gonna be a rock and roller coaster, and it kills two birds with one stone. Number one, it's big enough. Number one, but number two, they've been wanting to get rid of the rock and roller coaster or retheme it or address it in some way for a long, long time.
Yeah. Now, I have another speculation. Now, this was never even talked about or considered. This is just me just saying, hey, you know what? Let's check out this. There is another piece of land that Disney could potentially use. And I know fandom would be all huffed up about it if they
in a kerfluffle.
In a kerfluffle, yes. Yeah. In the Italiano way, a kerfluffle.
A kerfluffle.
Is the Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular.
Okay, now help me out with that. That's in the beginning of the park, right? Or
okay, so you want to go over? Okay, right where scroll, bring it down a little bit. It's right
here.
This winged bill, yeah, right where your cursor's at.
So it's kind of at the beginning. Yeah, it's kind of not too far from the entrance.
Yeah. So if you kind of zoom in there, now that building right there, that's just like the open, that's the seating part. Everything where you see all the dirt part and everything, that's actually the stage.
Yes, all of this back here. Now I would be sad, and this is funny. This is a flipperoni from OG. Okay, if you would have asked me before going to Hollywood Studios about the Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular, would I give a shit about it? No, I wouldn't. I would have said bulldoze it, put a ride in there. You know what I'm saying? I gotta say, I really like this show. And I liked it because it felt like old school Universal, like the 1990s Universal. Mm-hmm. It felt like that. And I know Michael Eisner, was trying. This whole park was an answer to Universal. I mean, 100%. But it felt like a Universal thing. But like when Universal was like really, in my opinion, like on top of its game, it feels like that. I would hate to lose it, but maybe they will. I don't know. I mean, we're getting Indiana Jones attraction now over there in Animal Kingdom. Do you need a Indiana Jones stage show? Right. But is it big enough though, George? I don't know.
If you clear out the theater
and all the trees and all
the trees that lead up to the entrance, you wipe out the whole complete stage. I mean,
maybe
it's possible. Now, here's the other thing too. Now, how close is Indiana Jones on the map to Muppets? So there's Indiana Jones.
Yeah, and then to Muppets. Muppets is way down here.
Way down there. Okay. Because the reason why I say that is because depending on where the angle was, and I know it's an old piece of concept art from 2020, but when people were looking at the water tower saying, oh, obviously there's the tower, obviously Muppets is going. It could have been from a different angle part of the park where you're looking at the tower where it seems like it's in Muppets, but really it's not. It's just on that side of the park. And that's what made me think, could it potentially be the area for Indiana Jones? Now, again, there was no rumbles in the jungle with that. That's just speculation that that is a big chunk of land that Disney could potentially use in the future. Again, is it big enough for what they're planning for Monsters Incorporated? Because again, we really didn't get too much details on the land itself. We didn't get like no confirmation on merchandise stores, on any kind of food or restaurants. We didn't get no clarification on the second attraction, if there is a second attraction, which chances are I believe that there's going to be. But now, did Josh D'Amaro say that it would start in 2026?
That I don't remember. To be completely honest, I don't remember. Let me ask you a question, George. Mm-hmm. You're more privy to this. Okay, so this is Toy Story Land, right?
Right.
Okay. And this is Midway Mania. These buildings right here, right?
Correct.
This is where they bulldoze. This is where Mickey Mouse Club used to be filmed, right? If I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
God, that's sad, bro. I love the Mickey Mouse Club growing up as a kid. The MMC, as they called it back then. If
memory serves me correctly, I could be wrong, but before it was the Mickey Mouse Club, it also housed the Adventures of Wonderland.
Another banger. I used to love that show too. This is Midway Mania is basically that, right?
Correct.
That's where it's at. Okay. Now this is Pixar Place. What's in this building?
Basically as far as I know on when you look on this side, like where the narrow street is in between where
right here.
Yeah, right there. So on that side of the building, I know they have like an indoor meet and greet, like for like the Incredibles, Frozone, Edna Mode. Now on the other side of that, I believe is that's the Sci-Fi Dining restaurant, and I think above it is the ABC commissary. So you have the sit-down restaurant, which is Sci-Fi, and then you have like the quick service ABC commissary. They basically share you have like three things sharing like one kind of big building.
Interesting. Okay, because it seems like a lot of space, but I guess it's connected to the Sci-Fi restaurant and the ABC.
I don't think they would touch that.
Yeah, so probably not. So the three locations are Muppets, which Muppets again. Okay, I'm not saying Muppets is going to be around forever. I do think Disney will eventually get rid of this. I absolutely do. I hate to rain on anyone's parade. I love the Muppets and I love Jim Henson. He's a legendary creative. But we got to be honest with ourselves, right? You know, and I think eventually they will get rid of it. You know, it makes more sense for it to be Star Wars though, because then you can do the connectivity from Batuu. And you can finally incorporate Star Tours into Galaxy's Edge. Mm-hmm. You can put like some kind of like original trilogy area here, maybe some Mandoverse stuff. But that's what I think you would do, and make one big Star Wars area, and that's going to be totally controversial because you're replacing Muppets with Star Wars. People are going to lose their shit, but it wouldn't surprise me, to be honest. You know?
Yeah.
And then you have this animation courtyard, which I know everyone wants the animation courtyard to go away. I just don't know if it's a big enough space for it. I don't see it going there either.
And then, of course, with the Little Mermaid show still being there, that saves that whole building.
I think it saves it. It's got to be this plot of land with Rock and Roller Coaster, in my opinion.
And honestly, and as I said, like 12 years ago, that's what was told to me by an Imagineer, that it was supposed to replace Rock and Roller Coaster from the very get-go, that a Monsters Inc. door coaster was. So what changes it now? Like if that was the initial intent with Rock and Roller Coaster still being there, that's giving actually them operational issues. It actually had to shut down after a 6-month refurbishment because they were having issues with the vehicles, with the tracks, with the tires. Aerosmith abruptly ended their tour because they went into full-blown retirement. What relevance does this ride have anymore? And again, this was a ride that was supposed to go over 10 years ago based off of the attraction that they're building now.
Yeah. Do kids even know who Aerosmith is nowadays? Probably not. Probably not a lot of. They're not. You know, I mean, they could technically, if they really wanted to keep it music related, which I don't think they do. I think Disney wants to get out of licensing this stuff. Yeah. I really think that's the goal. Put their own in-house IP. But if they wanted to, like, you know, dabble in the music thing, they could have a revolving door and like switch it out. You can have like Taylor Swift. I mean, they have a deal with her right now on Disney Plus. That would be crazy if they have a Taylor Swift version of this attraction, or like BTS or something, and kind of swap out the groups. You know, 1 year is Taylor, 1 year is BTS, 1 year is, you know, whoever you want. You know what I'm saying? But
I know who you would want.
No, it'd be Blackpink, dude. Totally, yeah. It'd be Blackpink, or I don't think they do Kendrick, right? Probably not. Probably not a Kendrick ride. But you know what I'm saying? They could do that technically. I don't think they want to do that. Plus, you run into issues too, right? Because you have real people, real music artists. Let's say you spend all this money to kind of retheme it into like a Taylor Swift ride or a BTS thing or whoever, right? And then there's a controversy with that particular artist. Now you have this ride sitting there and this artist has a huge scandal or something. You know what I'm saying? I mean, That's an issue when you're theming things to real people. I mean, that was the issue with Captain EO with Michael Jackson even, right? Mm-hmm. So it happens. I think Disney doesn't want to deal with any of that. I think they're going to just make it an IP thing. Monsters make sense. I think it's going in there. That's my money. That's where I'm putting it. I think it's going to go here, but we'll see, man. I think it's kind of interesting. This is a very controversial thing. If they get rid of Muppets, though, the fandom is going to lose their collective minds.
Yeah.
It's going to get ugly because you're coming off the heels of the Rivers of America thing. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And here's the thing. And then it gets so heated while people are just hearing the news. And then people will be going to Muppets consistently, you know, because they want to get their last showings in, and then they'll go on the last day, and then people would want to go to the very last show, and then they see all the walls up and they see construction tearing stuff down. But then it's like, once everything is built, not a peep. Hey, if they're gonna keep the Muppets courtyard, can we at least get a Cookie Monster cafe? Come on, show Cookie Monster some love. You know what I'm saying? I love Cookie Monster. No, but you know, in all seriousness, I don't think they have the rights to Cookie Monster. None of the Sesame Street. Yeah, none of the theirs. Sesame Streets. I think it's very interesting because they were still done under like the Jim Henson workshop and what have you. But yeah, they are completely licensed out differently than the actual Muppets, which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. That was always kind of confusing to me. You know, Disney didn't buy all of it. You know, and Sesame Street is not under their ownership. So they can't use like Big Bird or any of that.
Nope.
So it's crazy. Cookie Monster is the GOAT though, man. I love Cookie Monster.
Yeah.
You build a Cookie Monster dark ride. Oh God, I'm telling you, it would just crush, absolutely crush. But the Italiano, fantastic conversation. Where can the good folks at home find you on social media, sir?
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you can find me right here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
You say sticky, George?
I said sticky.
Sticky. So yeah, comment down below with everything we talked about today. Monstropolis, where do you think it's going? Is it going to replace the Muppets? Are they going to do that? Is it going to go into Rock and Roller Coaster area, which is kind of like what myself and the Italiano believes? Is it going to go into the animation courtyard? Is it going to go somewhere totally different? You know, if you have a different idea or a theory, comment down below. We would love to hear about it.
And also too, let us know what you think about if it would happen to go into the Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular. How do you feel about it? Are you okay with seeing the show going? Would you prefer taking Muppets over Indiana Jones or vice versa? That's an interesting one.
I think fans would be more okay with losing Indiana Jones. I think that the point of contention with Muppets, and I understand it. I do. I'm a huge Muppet person. You know, I love them.
Is the legacy of Jim Henson.
Yes, and his final piece of work, and I get that. But as a theme park, you have to have a little bit of malleability here. You have to have a little bit of room to kind of grow and evolve. So what I've suggested, and I think this would be a good compromise, is I think what you do is you if they don't have a Jim Henson museum already, they should.
Mhm.
But if I was Disney, I would partner up with the family or the Jim Henson Company, and I would build a Jim Henson museum and showcase Muppet Vision 3D at that museum, and it just has rotating shows all day long, and that way you don't lose his final work. It pays honor to the man, but you allow your theme park to evolve and change. I think that's a good compromise. It's not in the theme park anymore, but I think it would be in an even better home. I think in a way, what I'm saying, a whole museum, kind of like the family museum that they have for Walt Disney, something akin to that, but for Jim Henson. And you have a theater there, the Jim Henson Theater, and you play Muppet Vision. And that's his final work. You know what I'm saying?
And I think also, too, that if they were to incorporate them, and I know it's not the same because it's not, again, part of Jim Henson's final work, but I think if they were to incorporate the Muppets maybe back into Magic Kingdom in Liberty Square, maybe to have them take over the Hall of Presidents or what have you, I think that would kind of offset that at least Disney is still showcasing love for the Muppets.
Exactly. So we'll see what they do, but comment down below with all your theories, speculations, your wish lists. We would love to hear from you. Thank you all so much for watching this episode of OG55. Please consider subscribing. And if you really like the content and you want exclusive content and content early, you can become an OG55 member. Please consider becoming a member if that is your cup of tea. Thank you all for watching, and until the next time.
세상이 누구에게나 공평하게 추악해.